Hello, hello, hello. It is our usual marriage clinic podcast. Today is a Thursday. That's if you're listening live. And on whichever other day you choose to listen to it, it still remains relevant. This week is going to be a little bit different. This week and next week is going to be a little bit different. As you do know, we have the Marriage Clinic podcast and we have the Marriage Clinic in-person sessions. This is where we meet once a month to have conversations around the subjects of marriage, relationships, and personal development. Now, what happens is we normally do not let out the discussions or information we have there. Some things are for in-person only. But my brother and friend, Counselor Gyamfi, came and spoke to us on Help, I Can't Stand My In-Laws. Listen to that again. Help, I Can't Stand My In-Laws. And it was a profound conversation that we had with him, and he answered some very important questions. So what we're going to do this week and next week is we're going to bring you excerpts from that conversation and session we had with Counselor Gyamfi. So we are about to jump into it. So enjoy it, take good care of yourself, and I know you will be tremendously blessed by these conversations as he brings you help. I can't stand my in-laws.
Now tonight we are looking at very important topic that has to do with spouse and in-law relationship. It has always been a very major struggle, a very serious situation anytime we come to deal with marriage. That at a point in time, whether you like it or yes, you will have some issues you have to deal with when it comes to your in-laws. And for some people, it has been a very destructive issue to discuss. And operating from Elliot Counseling Consult and the kind of issues that come to me, sometimes I am like, wow. So these things are real. These things are happening. And sometimes you wonder what is going on. And so tonight I'm going to be looking at that area. And the title is Help, I Can't Stand My In-Laws. Help, I Can't Stand My In-Laws. The first time I looked at the topic, I said, hey, Brother Joseph, what are you looking for in this topic? Because the topic is a conflict. So help, I can't stand my in-laws. And sometimes the issues involve, when I'm preaching, I struggle to give examples. Because every example I give you, somebody else's case. Every example I give you, somebody else's case. So I remember speaking with one of my mentors. And he says, if you want to continue that way, then you will never preach. So preach your message and go. So I decided that let me go on and preach what I have to preach. Hallelujah. So help, I can't stand my in-laws. Now, to be able to help us to understand the issues or the struggle with the issue of in-laws, I want to come from an angle that will help us to appreciate the struggles that we are going through with the in-laws. And I want to look at marriage from the African context. Because until you understand why is it that these issues are the way they are, if you don't understand the root, then you can't appreciate the issues. Because we have to resolve the issues. And if we have to resolve them, then let's attempt to understand the context in which these issues come so that we will be able to resolve them. Now, when you come in, one of the challenges of marriage among young people, especially the literate, has to do with in-law interferences. Look at it right from wedding preparation, or right from the time you are even thinking of marrying somebody. That is when the battle starts. Because some of them, the in-law cases or issues are based on some perceptions. And some of these perceptions are based on experience. Perception, before you arrive at a certain perception, it means that something might have taken place. We talk about the fact that before you perceive or you make conclusion, you attend to a stimulus. So, for most people, the stimuli could just be what they have seen, what they have experienced, what they have observed. And so they can base on that and make conclusions. But the truth is that some of these conclusions are not the way they are. So you hear, you cannot marry from this tribe because when you marry from this tribe, their women don't stay in marriage. Then you look at number 1 case, true. Number 2, true. Number 3, true. Number 4, you're like, it's really happening. But you see, that is not enough to conclude. It is not true. You haven't married everybody from that tribe. You haven't married everybody from that tribe. You see, so you can't base on that. And that is because we just look at it and like, because this has happened, that is what it is. So we make conclusions. But we need to look at it. So in-law interference, it is not all the cases of in-laws interference that are bad. Some of them are necessary interferences. Some of them are very important. So it is not all the time that their interference are bad. But some of the interferences are positive and they have good intentions. Now our topic, help, I can't stand my in-laws, comes in where in-laws interferences are what? Negative. When they become superfluous interferences and when they become unbearable interferences. I don't want to see this. I have a case I was dealing with, and it is this in-law who determines when the daughter-in-law will have to go to market. She determines what ingredients you must go to market and buy. And she's like, you don't have to buy this type of ingredients and come and keep because I don't like it. When you keep it in the fridge for 3 days, 4 days, I don't like it. It loses its freshness. So she has to go to market almost every 2 days. So she brought me the matter. I looked at it. And I said, this one, I have to advise you. See, it's either we get your in-law involved in this matter for us to be able to discuss it. If you are going to deal with it alone, you will not understand yourselves. And so these are the cases. But let's look at it. What is it when it comes to marriage in the African context? Why is the situation so? Marriage within the African context has its nature and expectations. It has its nature, it has its expectation for spouses. So any form of departure from that context, from that expectation, it means you are ready for trouble. Hello? That is the problem. So even if your in-law is not a difficult in-law, the fact that you are departing from a certain context to begin with is enough for trouble to begin. Are we together? You know, when you come to those of us who can read and write small, we have our own problems. We have our own problems. We sat in the same class. And fortunately or unfortunately, maybe your partner, your wife, let me be precise, your wife was on top there and you were down there. I hope you understand it. Even in the second class upper you both got, her grade point is higher than your own. So when we come home, there is a certain context in which we are going to operate. So when we are going to manage the home, and it's like whatever decision you take as a man, we will have to discuss until we all agree that the decision can be taken. And in the African context, say, what do you mean by that? Who paid the dowry? Are we together? Who paid the dowry? And you are talking about the fact that we all have to discuss and agree until a decision is taken. So you see the problem already. Amongst us, we know that fine, that is what it should be. But by the time you are relating with your partner this way, when we get back home, and when I say home, you understand, it means you are wrong. Because your wife cannot be followed and say, I did not agree with this one, and you are taking the decision, I don't agree, and I will not agree. You will have problems. So anytime we are departing from that context, then there is an issue. And that is the way we should be able to understand it. So, what is it when it comes to the African context? Number one, marriage functions as a tool for creating and sustaining the ties of kinship. Looking at creating a family, we are looking at sustaining kinship lines or lineage. This is where the interest of in-laws come in. This is where the interest of the extended family comes in. It means at this point, the interest goes beyond the two of you. One scholar, Kwame Gyamfi, says this in his book entitled African Cultural Values, an Introduction. He says that marriage is a basic institution in every human society. It is the recognized social institution, not only for establishing and maintaining family, but also for creating and sustaining these ties. So you will have to look at it like that. I have questions here I'll be asking very soon, but let's look at it. So it means that for this scholar who looks at the nature of African marriage, it means that by the time two of you meet at the station or you come for marriage clinic and you see yourself and you are interested and you finally agree that you want to marry, know that there are some people's interests that must be considered. Some people's interests must be considered. Because that is the individual you have seen and you are interested, but you will have to marry a whole family. And you are marrying into a whole family. It goes beyond the individual. Nukunya has this to say about it. He says that anytime there is a marriage, and let me quote it, he said, when a couple is joined in marriage, their respective lineages and families automatically become affinal relatives, while the children of the union are kin. See? So, there is a linkage. I've been dealing with cases where people divorce. No, they marry, they divorce, and they remarry. And they but you cannot be free when there are children involved, because your children have been linked by this family you are running away from. And the truth is that you can't do anything about it. So, has the woman got the right to visit you again? She has every right. Has the man got the right to visit you in it? You can remove his pictures. You don't want to see him again in your life. But as long as you have children, you will see him. Praise God. You will see him whether you like it or not. So we have to understand that the children have become relatives. They have become relatives. If he goes to marry somewhere and produce other children, his children with the new wife and your children have become a family. You can't do anything about it. So, this is where the in-law issues are going to be coming from. But let's move on. Again, the second issue is that marriage in the African context functions as a communal tool that unites the community. It functions as a tool that unites the community. So, once the two of you have decided to marry, the two of you have come together and you have married, know that that marriage functions as a tool. It is going to bring the community together. And when you are talking about the community together, you are talking about those who are living now. You are talking about those who are yet to be born. And you are also talking about who? The dead. That is the African community. So in the African community, we are not dealing with only people who are alive. We are dealing with the unborn. We are also dealing with the dead. That is the reason why we don't know his story, whether he was a wicked man or not a wicked man. And you come to church to say, Brother Gyamfi, I don't want their matter in my marriage. This is my child. We have to name him Prophet Isaiah. You will have problem. Because the Prophet Isaiah, where do you know him from? Are you a Jew? Are you from Israel? But they are named after one grandfather. They have already started calling your son Mba. Meaning that for them, this child they are seeing is their grandfather who has come back to life. Are we together? So, marriage is seen as a converging point which unites the living with the dead and with the unborn. And therefore, Africans see marriage as the pivot of life. And this is by John Mbiti. And so that is the way he looks at it. So John Mbiti thinks that, look, anytime that you now think that you have nothing to do with them, you are just joking. So that gives us the reason why our in-laws will have interest in whatever is going on in the relationship. That is how come whatever we call them interferences or whatever word you want to use, depending on your grammar, they will be there. Let me take the last context and I'll move on. It's the fact that marriage in the African context is an assessment tool for manhood and womanhood. It's an assessment tool for manhood and womanhood. Now think about it and begin to look at the troubles already that are coming in. If it is an assessment of manhood and womanhood, it meant that after I have married her and for 2 years we don't have a child, expect the questions. They will meet you and ask you, John, is it that she doesn't agree or what is your problem? Is it that you are not strong or what is the problem? They will begin to ask you questions. And you are like, I don't want any interference. Especially the women, when you start crying, you think when you cry, they will stop coming. No, your crying will not put them away. So already that becomes a question. And look at something very interesting. Somebody said here. He says that a man who remains single, though he is capable of marrying. This is by Jackie. He said that a man who remains single, though he is capable of marrying, is considered irresponsible, even cruel by his kinsman or community, and perhaps also abnormal for falling short of the ideals of manhood. So you see, so for the African mind, marrying is not just because you are of age and you have seen a woman and you are interested. It is a proof that you are normal. Hallelujah. And it's also a proof that you are responsible. Because in some cultures and in some communities, when you are even grown with a long beard and you don't have a wife, anytime there was a family meeting or a meeting at the chief's palace, they will ask such a man to go and join the women. When they discuss and finish, they will send the information. Simple because they think that all is not well because you don't have a wife. So now, think about it. When you now have a wife and they think that you are still not proving yourself as a man or as a woman. Hello. This is what it means to us. So already, our context prepares us for problems. Now, come again to look at it from the Christian perspective, that this is the context. Now, we are operating as Christians, so you should know that we will have overdose of troubles. But let me quickly look at something. 3 dimensions of the in-law issues. Then we will discuss a little. What are these 3 dimensions of the in-law issues? Number 1 is communalism versus individualism. That is the first issue. Communalism versus individualism. In other words, the marriage in this perspective, in the African line and the way our thought patterns are, we are looking at marriage from a communal perspective. Meanwhile, those of us who are the actors in the marriage especially for you and I who are Christians, we are also looking at ourselves as individuals. So this becomes an issue. I am sure that maybe we were expecting that we are coming to say, my in-law is insulting me, she's not respecting me. But I want us to look at the context very well first. To now understand why are these insults and control and things coming in from. Are we together? So, marriage is a shared institution with several stakeholders. But its success depends on the individual actors, that are the husband and wife. Communalism versus individualism. So, it's a shared function. That is what it means. So, that is why when you come home in our local setting, your wife is not actually your wife. If you greet your elder brother, or you call him on phone, or you visit, and you ask him, how is your wife doing? He will tell you you're a stupid boy. You are not supposed to ask him, how is your wife doing? You are supposed to say, how is my wife doing? And if you go home and tell your elder brother that your wife sends greetings, they'll ask, so she's your wife and not our wife? Shared interest. You see, so look at it. You are trying to live as an individual, but they are looking at this as communal. So you serve your husband rice balls with 2 pieces of meat on top. And then his elder brother enters. Say, hey, so what are you doing today? What is going on here? And where's my brother? Then he opens his food and picks a piece of meat and is chewing. And you are like, what? How can you do that? You, the woman who served the food, you are getting angry. I served my husband and his brother has come to pick a piece of meat. You will not agree. And you tell your husband, talk to him. So talk to him about what? I served my food and he came and opened. I served you food and he came and opened and picked a piece of meat. I don't like it. That is disrespecting. Say, that is my brother. Meat cannot separate us. Now look at the way you are going to feel about it. Piece of meat cannot separate them. You too, you are not happy that you have served your husband and his brother has opened and taken a piece of meat. So what is the brother taking? Communal. Marriage is a shared institution. You too, you are here saying that he is my husband. There's trouble here. Second issue, the individual has a responsibility towards the family of origin and at the same time needs the permission and consent of his partner or her partner. So, this is it. The family depends, they make demand on you. They make demand on you. The family expect you to to take care of some responsibilities. And yet, you need the permission and consent of your husband, of your wife, before you can do what you have to do at home. Do you think it's going to work? It is not going to work. So you have come to marriage clinic and you have learned that as husband and wife, for your finances to work, you will have to budget. So you agreed. You sat down and you did your budget nicely and finished. Then an uncle calls and said, we are having a family meeting and we want to do some things. We have levied every family member. Yours is 500. Pay it in a week's time. What are you coming to tell your husband or your wife? There will be trouble there. If you also choose to send the money, there will still be trouble. So decide what you want to do with yourself. Because you are in bad business. Are we together? So this is the way the issues come in. Then, meeting family demands as against personal needs and interests. The same thing. Communalism versus individualism. I have to meet my family, my personal needs, and yet there is a financial demand from the family. And I'm talking about the family of origin. So this is what happens. Let me look at the number 2 issue. Cultural involvement versus Christian emancipation. See? I hope I'm not bringing too many issues here. Cultural involvement. You notice that from the day you got born again, that was the day your village died. But you are just joking because that village has no intentions of dying. Has no intentions. You will meet it squarely like this one day, either now or later. No, I've told you this story before. I was involved in a case where a lady wanted to marry, and the family didn't agree. And they fought over it after some time. They were not succeeding. So the two of them decided to move down south. And they were staying together, cohabiting. Then the lady became pregnant. And then when she went to deliver, she passed. And her family says, bring our daughter home. So you have to carry the dead body there. And when they got there, the family said, she will not be buried until you marry her. I was involved in this. We ran everywhere, it won't work. They said, unless he dowries the woman before he will be permitted to bury her. So they have to put the body somewhere. And the guy will have to organize, come and do the dowry. And after the dowry, he has to proceed with the burial. Can you imagine the kind of trauma this young man was going through? At a point, he wasn't thinking normal again. He didn't even know what was going on.